How you doing today? Ivy Nation Sports Talk up and rolling. It is Friday, and that means Rapid Fire Day here on the good old show. For right now, it is Jesse Stiers, along with me, Sean Stiers, and getting a phone call right as the show starts, so that's always cool as well. Vince is going to be along in a little bit. He is, this is not a good word, tardy. He is tardy today. As he leaves his position as the Dean of Students at Penn High School. How are you today, Jess?
I'm doing just great. It's Friday. The weekend is here. I'm getting ready to go hang out with some friends. But other than that, I got we're putting together our wedding menu this weekend. So we're going to try all of our food and
going to pick some things for me.
Stuff, so, you actually get the last plate.
Okay, of course. Well, I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. Notre Dame women's basketball in the Sweet 16 against TCU tomorrow. We've got that on tap. I got here last night, Jess, and my shaving kit. I call it my shaving kit, but it's basically my portable medicine cabinet. For the first time, I think, since I've been doing this, I forgot to pack it. So I had no razor, no deodorant, no toothbrush, no toothpaste, nothing. In addition to, I don't take a lot of medications, but there are other things, just like ibuprofen and, some other vitamins. Things that I take at night. But yeah, vitamins, that I take before I go to bed. None of it. I had none of it. So this morning, I hiked it about a mile up the road, went to Target, and $60 later, I have everything that I need for a trip. That's what it costs to replace all the things that I have. And I didn't actually replace all of them because I actually carry a pair of scissors as well, like just in case in that thing. And I didn't replace the scissors, but all the stuff that I absolutely need. $60 worth to replace all that stuff.
And I bet you got the travel size version too on a lot of
I did
stuff.
Of everything that I could. I got the smallest sizes that I could. But I guess I'll have to wait. End of the year, when I turn in my taxes, that's a travel expense. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Won't get reimbursed in full. Well, Vince is going to be along in a little bit. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and get started in the meantime as the Dean of Discipline strolls in late here this afternoon. And it was Notre Dame's Pro Day yesterday. Did it feel a little bit uneventful compared to other Pro Days in recent memory?
I would say it was uneventful because I honestly forgot about it. I had to go back and watch a lot of the highlights, via YouTube and Notre Dame football, Twitter, Instagram, that sort of stuff. And the thing is I knew it was on Peacock. I knew it was going to be televised. I think what throws it off is you put it at like noon in the middle of the workday, and that's kind of where it gets lost in the shuffle. Mm-hmm. Because I just had so much going on work-wise, and then we hadn't done a show, I think, till earlier in the week, and so it just wasn't really on my radar. And that's not to say that it's not something I don't care for or not enjoy, because I do. And I wanted to see, how some of the guys tested, but being in the middle of a work day, I think, is what kind of threw me off a little bit.
Yeah, and there wasn't that sort of big question going in. Like last year, it was Audric Estime. Was he going to run a better 40 time at Pro
That's true.
Day?
There was nothing that really needed to be answered.
Exactly.
In the Pro Day.
Yeah, and that's it. There was none of these guys really had any big question to answer. And like Xavier Watts didn't run a great 40 time. He ran a good 40 time. Go ahead.
I would say the thing that I noticed most about Xavier Watts is he is completely clean cut now. He cut off all of his hair, and I was like, "Oh, that's Xavier." I didn't even recognize him at first. I think it makes him look a little like boxier, a little bit stronger. To be honest with you, he looked a little bit more built. I don't know if that was just the off-season training, getting ready for Pro Day, but that's what I noticed first thing is all of his hair was gone.
I think he shaved it off before the combine, if I remember right. Because I know I've seen some pictures of him, but yeah, like I saw the video of him, and he definitely looks different. He looks like a different dude without, the dreads that he's had for the last, I don't even know how many years, at least the last 3 years, I think. But yeah, the big difference for him. Jack Kaiser ran a 4.62, and I kind of surprised me a little bit, especially like when you compare it to Rod Hurd and Jordan Clark, who both ran 4.64s. He ran slightly faster than a couple of defensive backs. Like, does Kaiser have, maybe a little bit more juice, a little, down in the wheels than we thought that he did?
I'm glad Vince isn't here, because Vince would say that a 4.62 is slow.
It's slow.
But that is fast, and that is definitely a very respectable time for a linebacker. And that's, when you think about it in comparison, isn't that what Audric Estime basically ran last year?
I think it was right around there. Yeah.
And so we know Kaiser has a bunch of athleticism because he played quarterback in high school, and he was obviously, more of a kind of a mobile running quarterback. The athleticism is there, and I think that's something that the coaches, echoed and kind of preached, is kind of how sneaky athletic Jack Kaiser is, as well as being a super intelligent linebacker at the same time. And so the better he keeps doing, running the 4.62, I'm sure he did really well talking to teams at the combine and some of his other testing metrics. I just think it locks him up to be wearing black and orange next season. I think that Al Golden is going to snatch him up and really, the Bengals need help defensively. Mm-hmm. Al Golden's the new defensive coordinator who knows the defense probably just as well as anyone besides Jack Kaiser being the captain of the defense last season. And so I think that there's a very good chance that that's where he might, end up. And Al Golden has the opportunity with, being the new defensive coordinator and them using a lot of assets on the offensive side of the ball to kind of sign some of these wide receivers. I think they're going to use a lot of that draft compensation this year to try to bolster up the defense. And so I think it'll be a matter of, if Kaiser gets kind of plucked away from them unexpectedly, but I really expect him to go there.
Would make a lot of sense. He's a perfect, like, early day 3 type draft pick, or even mid day 3 type draft pick. It's not like they're going to spend a high pick.
It'd be like Bertrand last year.
Yeah, exactly. Right around that 5th round. Like, that would make perfect sense for the Cincinnati Bengals to get the kind of guy who knows what you want to do. And, obviously running the 4.62. Estime at the combine ran a 4.71. And then I think his pro day time was what you said, right around that 4.6, 4.62 range, something like that. So, that's in that same range.
And that's a guy who is on an NFL roster as a running back. So Jack Kaiser has what I would call NFL running back speed. Like, he has enough speed and lateral quickness to get to running backs on the perimeter, and obviously, between the tackles as well. So I thought it was really impressive. And if he would have got under 4.6, I really would have lost my mind. But I still think the 4.62 is really good. And then obviously too, when you put it side by side with those deep, he's running faster than some DBs.
Yeah,
which is
again, he's a little bit faster than both Jordan Clark and Rod Hurd. The Clark thing really surprised me. He looked a lot faster during the season than that. So I don't know if it's, maybe some of that is still with him or what. I mean, we're splitting hairs. It's, he's slightly faster than Clark or Hurd, but at the same time, I was a little surprised by Clark's.
Trust me, he's probably going to tell those guys, I'm faster than you. I'm sure that some sort of comment was made.
I'm sure. No testing for Riley Leonard. Just through. What do you think about that? No 40 time, none of the agility stuff, nothing for Riley Leonard other than throwing some passes out there.
Did he do all the agility stuff at the combine?
He did not. Did none of that.
Interesting. I don't personally mind it. I know Shedeur Sanders isn't really doing any of that as well, but obviously he's more high profile and has more, a draft stock than Riley Leonard. But I think there's no question about Riley Leonard's athleticism, speed, and just kind of lateral quickness comparatively at the quarterback position, right? The quarterback position, unless you're Lamar Jackson, I don't think that stuff is super imperative. The number one thing that it comes down to is how you throw the ball at the end of the day and what the ball looks like coming out of your hands. Can you drive all the route and, drive and make all the NFL throws? That's that sort of situation. And when you start talking about Riley Leonard, what's the number one question mark always going to be? Can he be an NFL passer? Can he make NFL throws? Because I think the rest of it It's already on tape. You know what he can do and all the other assets of the game. The biggest question mark is, can he be an NFL thrower?
But real throws are on tape as well. And I know that, like he wanted to answer questions about could he throw the deep ball better? Did he have the arm strength to throw, some of those outs over toward the sideline? And he made some of those throws yesterday. How much are you really proving, in a combine setting, doing it against air, right? Like did he really prove anything by doing anything, with any of the passes that he threw? Because again, like you've got, all that game tape, that you can actually watch, that NFL evaluators are going to watch. I just, again, like running a good 40 time, if you're Riley Leonard, it's not like you're going to, earn a draft spot, earn a job by running a good 40 time. But at the same time, like it feels like if you put up an exceptional 40 time, then you at least put that in the minds of NFL guys. So to me, I have to wonder, like, has he been doing some of this testing, and was it maybe not as good as he would have wanted to be? So he's just like, well, I'll just go ahead and pass on that. I won't even do it, just so he didn't leave any sort of negative, thought in anybody's mind, because that's where he excels. We know the speed stuff is where he excels. So you would have thought that he would have done that, but he didn't.
Yeah, and maybe there's potential that he's still recovering. It was a long season. He did have those kind of surgeries before the season. And I was listening to some of the commentary while he was throwing, and I thought that they brought up a good point when talking about Riley Leonard is, this is a guy who finished the season and then the same week went on to play in the Senior Bowl. And then right after that started getting ready for the combine and participated in the combine. And now he's doing the pro day. And, I know at the combine and pro day, he didn't do, quite everything, but I think Riley Leonard is just always that guy who loves playing football, and he's always going to, show up when given the opportunity. But I think what you were saying is definitely true. There had to be something that held him back of, maybe his numbers wouldn't equate to as good as what he showed on film, so he didn't want to negatively impact himself.
I don't get what you're saying here, Salty. He says, I'm not sure many NFL teams want their quarterback out there running all over the place. Are you talking about at the combine or in general? If you draft Riley Leonard, running is going to be a part of his game, just like Josh Allen, just like Lamar Jackson. Like it's going to be part of his game if he's going to make it in the NFL. He's not just going to go to the NFL and all of a sudden become a pocket passer. Running is still going to be part of Leonard's game. And I saw Jake Arthur, who I've talked to before. He covers the Indianapolis Colts. He was at Pro Day yesterday, and I saw some stuff that he put up saying that, like Riley Leonard is definitely somebody who the Colts have some interest in, because obviously they've got Anthony Richardson and whatever happens with him and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Like Riley Leonard's going to be, if he's gonna make it in the NFL, running's going to be part of his game. That's not just going to disappear all of a sudden. Then the bench press. I don't remember ever seeing any video of the bench presses at Notre Dame before in any of their pro days. And we got Jordan Clark pumping out 18 reps of 225, and BMO with 17 reps. The defensive backs getting it done on the bench, man. I was impressed by that. They were throwing some iron around.
Yeah, they were moving some serious weight, and I agree. I'd never seen such a nice backdrop just for some bench press testing. They had like the basically like the two corner panels and then the bench press in front. And you had like the Notre Dame, I think some sort of Notre Dame logo on one side, and then I think Pro Day on the other side. But I agree, it was like a pretty cool kind of stage or setup just to get under there and throw 225 around. And honestly, had doing some of that before. The adrenaline probably helped those guys because of the stage and, this is the official, pro day number. And so I think those guys definitely squeezed out an extra 2 to 3 reps just off the adrenaline alone.
It was funny because the day before pro day, so that would have been Wednesday, when we were going over to practice, Jordan Clark walked in right before me, like through the door at the IAC. And I was kind of like, oh, Jordan Clark's at practice. And I wasn't even thinking about the fact that pro day was the next day. Obviously, why he was in town, to be showing up at practice. All right, so pro day in the books.
I just one more thing about Morrison. Oh,
Mike.
There he is. I thought it was impressive Morrison threw up that weight considering, the surgeries that he just had. And I think it shows some good stability to be able to throw some 225 around like that.
True. He's been working, obviously, on what he can. And there's no word on when he's going to hold the private workouts that I guess he's still going to do. Vince, do we have another backdrop for this, by the way?
Well, we used to.
Did we get rid of that? I'm looking for it.
Doesn't
look the same as it used to look. All right, I don't see it.
I don't know if we have the three. It says, oh, here we go. Used for 3 people.
Hey.
Okay, there we go. A little bit different, but there we go.
All right. There's another one here too. Oh, so you can choose. Look, we got options.
All right.
Cool.
Vince, I said this at the top of the show. Not a good look for the dean of students to be sliding in tardy.
If it makes you feel any better, we were watching the show on the drive home. My daughter and I, and she started. She thought that was fantastic.
She got a good laugh out of that one.
Yeah, but those CPS calls don't wait for anyone. So,
no, I hear you.
Gotta do what you gotta do. But I appreciate you guys taking the combine talk because I didn't really have anything to add. So
that's why we started with it.
I appreciate it.
We're like, Vince will have nothing to add to this anyway,
Nope.
so we'll just start with it.
I've got nothing to add. Well, and sometimes it lands on an opportunity where I can actually go and like kind of see it all happen. Like I remember going to pro day when Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey, I believe they were in the same.
Yeah.
And they were going up against each other. And it was like just two mooses like just going at it. And it was like, okay, this is fun. Like this was cool. Other pro days just don't really light the fire. You know what I mean? I don't get into that kind of stuff a whole lot. Like,
see, again, like the Riley Leonard thing. Like, I feel like if Riley Leonard had gone out there and ran, just like a, off the charts 40 time, your definition of off the charts, like even if it's whatever, but like I felt like he could have, like there could have been some buzz for him coming out of.
I don't disagree with you. I think where he could have really kind of made a name for himself was in some of those agility type drills, things like that. I mean, I see the argument, let the film do the talking kind of a deal because he is football fast and nobody can deny that. Right.
Yeah.
And so maybe you don't want to put numbers to that because then maybe it doesn't seem like he's as fast as he is. He's got really good film when it comes to that kind of thing. So I don't know. Somebody's obviously in his ear telling him what they think is best and all of those types of things.
Right.
And the biggest question mark for him is throwing the football. So that's going to be the most important. And I didn't see it, so I have no idea how he did throwing the football. I assume it was similar to the way he did it at the combine.
From everything I heard, it was fine. But again, it's wide receivers, no defensive backs. Like what ultimately you're not going to turn any pro scout's head.
100%. And wherever he ends up going, he's going to work his tail off. He's going to be a great locker room guy. He's going to be an asset to wherever he ends up. He's going to be in the NFL for as long as he wants to be in the NFL. Is he going to be a day one starter? No, he's not. Right. He might get some spot starts and he might find a position, an opportunity with a team where he does end up being the starter. There have been a lot less talented guys as starting quarterbacks in the NFL for an extended period of time. You know what I mean? I think his work ethic could get him there, but it's got to be the right fit.
Absolutely agree with that. TD Ferendi asking how Birmingham is. It is beautiful here today. I don't know. Let me. The sun is shining, and it was at least in the 70s today. Let me see what it says. Right, we might be touching 82 degrees according to.
Well,
it says
you got us by 10 degrees. It's 72 here, and it is fairly sunny actually.
Finally got nice at home after we left town. All right,
for the day. We'll see if that actually lasts. It rained hard most of the day, but then the sun kind of popped out this afternoon. So
all right. Well, quarterbacks, you may have heard they've been a hot topic of conversation at Notre Dame spring practice. So we're just going to keep it going. And Vince fired up on the Champions Lounge earlier this week. He went at it.
I saw that you decided to throw my own words back at me. We'll see how this goes.
So here's what Vince said. I'm perplexed at the amount of people, media included, that think it is a good idea to start Angeli against Miami, and then he'll get replaced by Carr or Minchey following that game. What does he bring to the table that the other two do not? Serious question. One start, one more year in the program? Question mark. So that's from Vince on the Champions Lounge. And the crux of this is this idea that, as he said, that Steve Angeli would be named the starter for the Miami game, theoretically, I guess, because of his experience, but then be replaced by Carr or Minchey because they would, have been deemed to actually be the better quarterback than Angeli. But you would start Angeli in spite of the fact that he didn't win the battle just because of the experience factor against Miami. That's the crux of what you're saying, right?
I've heard it from more than one place.
I have too.
Fans, media, all. I've heard that so many times that it really does baffle me. I am perplexed. I am, and they all refer back to 2018 with the Wimbush book situation where they started Wimbush against Michigan,
different head coach.
Yeah, and then Book eventually took over. I think it was like 3 games in, something along those lines. And then obviously he was the starter of the rest of the season. Diametrically opposed situations between 25 and 2018. You can't even use that as an example. There is in no world is that a comparable situation to me. So
I don't think so either. Because in that situation specifically, I don't think that they were fully confident yet in Ian Book. And Wimbush obviously was also the starter the year before. And it just, that got to a point where Wimbush, unfortunately, especially for him, just he couldn't complete the layups. He couldn't even complete a little swing pass out of the backfield. The ball was just so erratic coming out of his hand.
It was not good.
So, Jesse, we'll let you start off with this. What do you think about this scenario where Angeli would be named the starter because of the experience, but then one of these other guys would take over at quarterback afterwards?
Yeah, first of all I can think about is Vince frantically typing this question out and getting a little angry as he's doing it. And how many times he had to delete. I got to come up with something a little bit better there. No, but I agree with Vince in probably a nicer way at the end of the day, but there's just really no reason or nothing to gain out of starting Angeli down in Miami just because you would feel, ultimately more comfortable. And I think that, how this thing needs to be run is you start with a quarterback and you stick with the quarterback, because I don't know. I don't like this kind of game of, taking confidence away from one guy and then, starting another guy and then trying to inject that confidence in him, potentially after a win. Because let's say that they do go to this plan and Angeli goes down to Miami and they win that game. And now you're handing the keys over to Carr or Minchey. Is that really fair to them at the end of the day and being like, hey, we just won this big game, but here's game 2. Don't go out and blow this thing or have a bad game or a dud or anything. And that sounds very reminiscent to kind of what already happened last season. They win the big game against Texas A&M and come home and, quarterback has a bad game against NIU and they suffer one of their worst losses in, many years type situation. So if you deem a guy to be the most talented, that's who you need to stick with. And that's who you need to continue to develop the whole season, not for, 11 games or 10 games or 9 games. You need to pick one guy and roll them the entire way. And it seems like that people just they have this fixation of finding a way to get Angeli an opportunity or a shot to play quarterback. It's almost like, do you want the best option, or are you just fixated on this guy that you think just really deserves a chance to be a quarterback for at least a game because he's been the backup and he sat, behind for a few years and he's shown some, good glimpses and he had some good plays in the playoff. It's like, people think he's deserves this one shot or one opportunity type thing. And it's like,
right,
just pick the quarterback that's the best and let him go the whole season. If that's Angeli, that's Angeli. I'll eat all my words, but if that's Carr or Minchey, then just let that guy ride out and let them take the full experience of what it means to be a quarterback and develop.
Am I allowed to defend myself?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because Jesse's saying the same thing, like you said, just in a little bit of a nicer way. It is. Let's just look at it from a practical standpoint. If you are going into the season, okay, with this as your plan, first of all, I question a lot of things about your decision making. But if this is your plan,
but that's the key right there, because not only would the team would question it as well, and that's like anyone who thinks that this is a rational plan has to think about that, because the team knows. The team will know who the better of the two or the three is.
Right, 100%.
And that, just like, Brian Kelly trying to go with Zaire and Kaiser, at the same, like, the team knows. The team sees through it. I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, you're good. My biggest thing, and I actually had this conversation with Brian a couple of days ago when we were talking about this very subject. You are obviously, Miami is going to be a hostile environment on the road, right? And I guess everybody's thinking is, well, Steve is unshakable. He's the guy that you want to take into that environment. That is the last environment for the regular season that is going to be as hostile as that environment, right? So if your plan is to put Steve as your quarterback and then replace him with somebody else, and then that somebody else is supposed to take you the rest of the way, well, there are playoffs at the end of that where you will be in a hostile environment.
Again, so you're going to bring Angeli back for that after the other guy plays all year?
Exactly.
Just because of that?
Hostile environment for your second guy that came in. Do you want his first hostile environment to be in the playoff? Or do you want his first hostile environment to be at the beginning of the year with everybody else on his team, and then he gets to learn from it and everything else moving forward? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why you would do that. It just doesn't. And then on top of that, what does he bring to the table from an athletic perspective, right? Legs, arm, decision-making, whatever category you want to use, what does he bring to the table that the other two guys don't, that gives you an advantage going to Miami? Wimbush brought a different element than Book did. That's why he started against Michigan. Right. He brought an element to the table with his legs. Now, Book could move around, obviously, but Wimbush was more dynamic with his legs. That's why he started against Michigan. Where is that in 25? What does Steve, and this is a legitimate question. It's not hating on Steve.
The skill sets are not that dramatically different. It's a matter of who's the better decision maker, who has the better arm, who has more arm talent, all those things, like that's,
he doesn't bring a dynamic skill set that the other two don't.
There's not a different, exactly. Like between the three, obviously Minchey has that, has the more different skill set than either of the other two with his legs. And then now I'm not saying that Minchey is Riley Leonard in terms of the running and stuff like that. But, like if we go back to last spring, the last time we got to see Minchey do some live stuff, outside of a few live snaps against Purdue last season, I mean, you can see the difference where he's able to, to more aptly make plays with his legs than the other two are going to be able to make. But it's just like, there is no universe where this makes sense if either of the other two is clearly the better of the three. And even if it's close and they think that one of those two guys is the better quarterback, just because, again, like you brought up Texas A&M. So like you don't get the job just because you've put in time. Like, go to the left tackle position last season after Charles Jagasaw got hurt. Tosh Baker put in a ton of time at Notre Dame. Anthony Knapp was a true freshman. And this was a topic, remember, like going in, because of the hostile situation and it's left tackle and it's such an important position. Should you start Baker because of his relative experience advantage over a guy like Anthony Knapp? They didn't go that direction, so like we at least have that. Like they didn't do that, and like to me, if this is your plan, like you're only starting the guy, you're going to start the guy with, who is not the guy for the job. And again, we're talking about the scenario where one of these other two guys, Carr or Minchey, would prove to be better. We're not saying that they are going to, but like this is the scenario that's sort of being floated around out there. And like you, Vince, I've seen multiple people kind of throw that out there as well. You can't make an important decision like this because you would be making it out of fear. You can't make a decision like this out of fear because like that's not how Marcus Freeman rolls. That's not how Mike Denbrock rolls. You can't resort to fear because you're afraid of a little bit of environment going into a road setting at a place like Miami. You just can't do it. You've got to go with the guy who is actually the best guy for the job because, again, the team would know. And all you're doing is setting yourself up for disaster right off the bat if things, don't work out.
Yeah. And people saying that, well, Steve Angeli has the locker room and they're all behind him and all that. Dude,
you don't know that.
First of all, that's not true. There's no way that locker room of elite athletes is sitting back and sees the quarterback competition is like, yep, that's the guy that'll get us where we need to go. Like, I just don't see how that's possible.
I mean, he might have part of the locker room right now just because, again, he's been around the longest,
sure.
and he's
a great guy.
And he's a hard worker. He's done all the right things and all that kind of stuff. But there are plenty of guys who do all the right things, but ultimately at the end of the day, again, like use Tosh Baker. Tosh Baker did all the right things as well. But over the course of an entire season, they went with a guy who had a ton less experience.
And you know what? That's why he got to flip the little sign every time when they around.
They respected Tosh Baker. He was a great locker room guy. Yeah.
I mean, like he didn't play, but he got to turn the sign that said they were going to the next round. Like, you don't get to,
the experience that Angeli has as well. Again, it's like we're acting like he's got this. We're acting like he's like Drew Pine and has started the majority of a season. Right. He has 245 career snaps to his credit. 103 of them came last year. And again, I keep coming back to the fact over the course of 3 years, that's about 4 games. You don't decide that one guy is the best and then go with someone else because he played, half a game against Purdue and half a game against Tennessee State. I'm sorry.
Yep. Could not agree more. We get to have this argument and debate for the next 4 months.
Talent should always outweigh experience. And if I am a coach and a team, I would rather my quarterback take its lumps in a hostile environment in the first game of the season rather than towards the end or potentially a playoff when it really matters and you can't stand to lose that game at all.
Because if Carr and Minchey are the guy, the only way they're going to get that experience in that kind of environment is by putting them into that environment.
Right. And so they need it would be a disservice to not let them be ready for the bigger game because you can't expect them to be great in their first big stage moment when it really matters the most rather than the first game of the season where there's obviously a bit more wiggle room. You don't want to lose the game, but there's way more wiggle room than it is game 12 or potentially a playoff game.
Right. By the way, this blonde guy on 3 who does these, I can't remember his name, but I saw he did this intel piece, video the other day on the Notre Dame quarterback job. The video popped up in my suggestions and he starts out and he's like, I'm hearing Steve Angeli is approaching this competition like it's, his job, like he's the starter. That's what I'm hearing. And it's like, yeah, you're hearing it because Gino Gaduli sat in front of a bunch of microphones and told me specifically, actually, when I asked him the question about Angeli's approach to the spring, that he's approaching it like it is his job to lose, which he should be. But this guy is acting like it's his intel and, like he's hearing this, like through some sources or whatever. All he's doing is like it came up at a press conference and he's acting like it's his great piece of intel.
Come on. How is that even intel? How a guy is approaching practice. Like I hope all 3 of them are approaching practice that way. That's not intel.
And that's what Gaduli also said, that all 3 of them are approaching it that way.
Clickbait. Bloop, bloop.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable.
All right, so more quarterback stuff. Speaking of CJ Carr, we know that they're splitting reps obviously evenly this spring: Carr, Angeli, and Minchey. And that means some days a guy's getting reps with the ones and twos. Other days he's getting more reps with the threes. So here is what CJ Carr had to say about that. Quote, "If I'm with the ones, I've got to be elite. If I'm with the threes, I've got to be elite." And that is blank.
The only mindset to have. There's really no other answer to me in that situation, because we've talked about this before. Everyone's going to have their opportunities with their ones and threes. I think almost you don't even worry about what group you're in. You just go out there and be elite and be the best version of yourself, and kind of put your blinders on to, again, quote unquote, what group you're in. Just go out there, and this is, I've been seeing this a lot recently, and I don't know if it's just because, I've been getting back into working out pretty seriously, but it's just you versus you every day. Like if you let someone else dictate your personal growth and how you're going to get better that day, then you're not really getting better. You have to focus on beating yourself and what you did the day before and getting better every day. And so how do you do that? You just go out there, and again, you don't worry about if it's ones or twos or threes. You go out there and accomplish what you need to and have the best version of yourself. So yeah, there's my take.
Yeah, it's absolutely the right mindset. It's exactly what he should be doing. It's what I would want him to say. He said it. Like, I'm good. Like, again, words aren't going to win you anything, but I also believe that is how he is approaching it physically as well.
He's not just blowing smoke.
Right, exactly.
No, and you can tell he's not just blowing smoke either.
Right.
Like,
and it's hard to be elite when you probably don't even have a full third team out there. So more power to him if he's still being elite with like 8 guys. So that's good.
But I mean, look, this is a guy who put in reps with not just the third string, but the scout team last year when he was able to be out there practicing. And, what's even crazier to me is the fact that, and we just put up a story about CJ Carr on the website at irishbreakdown.com. And if you're a Champions Lounge subscriber, you can see it there as well. But the fact that he hurt that elbow in the middle of last season, and then he rehabbed it, and now he says that he's throwing the ball even farther than he was before the injury. Like this guy has got it in a lot of different ways. But I mean, the only way, whether you're Steve Angeli, Kenny Minchey, CJ Carr, the only way that you're going to rise to the top of the depth chart is to have the attitude. Like, you can't just slack because, today I'm with the third team more, so I'm just going to go through the motions. Like, the only way you're going to rise to the top is by having that mindset that he's talking about. He's got to be elite every day. So I think it was just great to hear, hear him say it out loud. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame women's basketball against TCU in the Sweet 16 Saturday in Birmingham. A win for the Irish would be blank.
Expected. Yep. That's the way I'm going after it. It's expected. I expect them to win at 1:00 tomorrow. And this team is elite. I definitely did not put money down on them to win the national championship. So they got 4 more games to win.
For me, a win versus TCU would be checking off goal 1. And I think goal 1 was to get past the Sweet 16. Niella has never done that before. And I think, when you get into situations like this and you're one of the final 16 teams in the country, it's got to be taken game by game. And what's obviously the end goal is a national championship. Everyone knows that. But under Neil Ivey, this hasn't happened before. This is the round that they're kind of stuck at. And so I think that this is clearly their, first goal in a series of goals to win the ultimate goal of the national championship. And so, I think it's a little bit more than expected because of, not making it past this point before. But it would be a disappointment if they didn't win and got held up here for the third time under, Neil Ivey's regime as the head coach.
Yeah. And I think it would be for the Ivey era, it would be landmark, obviously, because you have been in this situation 3 times before. And this is the 4th time now. And with everything that this team has, I think that they have all known that the next step is what they're looking for. So it's the next step in the goal, to the ultimate goal that they're going for. Landmark, at least for now, and that they would move past, the Sweet 16 finally. But as Olivia Miles said after Sunday, the job's not done. And I think that they all know that there's more to this job that they're looking for. And I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about this weekend. I think that I feel better about this Sweet 16, like in all of them. Each of the last three, I felt, good to varying degrees, but feel really good about this one. Miles was saying at the press conference this morning that it was hard for them watching film of that first TCU game when they were watching it, and looking to breaking it down and kind of looking where things went wrong for them in the fourth quarter. And I think that's a good sign as well, because I really
Makes
feel
you
like,
hungrier.
yeah, I really feel like this team is motivated because they know when they've peaked, when they've been peaking, when they've been, revving the engines high and they found that different gear, they know what they're fully capable of. And I they had this team they had TCU down by 14 the first time they played them and ended up losing because they were outscored 31-12 in the fourth quarter. And I really think that is kind of been a sour note for them, as they've been preparing for this.
And a side kind of note here, I think it'd be pretty sweet revenge, obviously, to avenge your loss to TCU from earlier in the season, Big 12 champs, right. Big 12 player of the year. And also just being a little bit, kind of petty like I am myself and a little bit spiteful. It would be fun to, put the stamp on Van List's career and kick her out of women's college basketball, considering her time with Louisville too. She has a track record with Notre Dame. I think things are going to get a little chirpy at some point against TCU, especially if they get down a little bit. And so if Notre Dame can, close the door on the Van Lith era in college basketball, I think that would be kind of, a nice little cherry on top at the end.
That would be fun. There's no doubt about that.
Would not be upset about it.
TD4ND, appreciate you. Put up the Sonia Citron interview yesterday, so it is up there both on YouTube and whatever other podcast platforms that you listen to. If you haven't, on our IB channel. So if you haven't listened to the Sonia Citron interview, it is out there. And Jesse, we touched a little bit at the end on Mr. Leofow. She had in the background, she had a framed Marist Leofow jersey up on the wall. And she was at the Cleveland Cowboys game that we were at last year. We talked about that a little bit at the end.
Nice.
Well, look at that. You guys were all there together.
I know. Who knew?
Should have gotten a pint.
US Van Lith.
He wasn't drinking pints that day.
Well, I was thinking more her since she was in the stands. I didn't expect him to walk off the field and be like, "Let's go get a drink."
Appreciate you, USMA 87. But Neil Ivy also said today that Olivia Miles is a lot better, and she was out there practicing this morning. So it is. I forgot that Alabama is on Central Time. So we're an hour earlier here than you. So it's a 1:00 game for you guys tomorrow. It's noon for us tomorrow morning. So
what's the bus call? When are you guys actually taking off then?
I think we're leaving at about 10:20. Something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Which it's actually a little later than I thought we might leave, but that's what it said. But we also get the police escort. When you do the tournament stuff, they give you the police escort. So everyone has to pull over and we just zip right by them.
Nice.
So it's kind of like the fast pass.
Nice.
Up there. Yeah. All right. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Michigan says its April 19th spring football game is going to be televised on the Big Ten Network, but they're not going to air it until roughly a week later after the spring transfer portal window closes.
It's typical arrogance of Michigan people that they think that all these schools are going to be dialed into their spring game to look for transfer students. Give me a break, dude. Nobody's watching spring games to look for transfers. That's not, and if you are, your program sucks. I'm sorry. If that's how you're evaluating players, your program is awful. So give it a rest with the whole spring ball. We got to cancel the game. We can't televise it. No, but everybody's going to be watching. Dude, if somebody really wants to watch your players, they'll buy a $5 ticket at Meijer and come to the game and watch them in person. Like, oh, it just irritates me so much. And the fact that Michigan is attached to it irritates me even more.
Go ahead, Jesse.
I just find it to be purposely shady at the end of the day. They're always trying to do something, like the whole national championship year, all the stuff and reports that's been coming out about ex-coaches that have been there. Like their whole program has just been shady the last 3 to 4 years. And then like Vince said, there's just this arrogance that's attached to it as well. And it's like, shouldn't you guys just kind of like be trying to go off and mind your own business for a couple years and get sort of that like spotlight and shadiness kind of away from you? Because there's so many ongoing like this week I read the report about the Michigan coach that basically got suspended from the team and is now getting charged with like federal indictments and stuff. And it's like, like what are we doing here? And so again, the waters just feel very murky around Michigan, and they continue to do stuff that I feel is purposely shady. It's like you're not doing anything to bring the attention off of you at the end of the day. You're just asking. You're opening the door for more questions, people to question why you're doing things.
See, this is the real person. This is the real criminal in this whole thing. It's Matt Rule, because
the
Matt Rule
chain effect, the domino effect.
It's Matt Rule's fault, as NH says in the chat. Matt Rule is the one I actually, until you guys just started ripping Michigan left and right, I was actually giving, Michigan some credit in this whole thing. It's like, we're at least playing they're at least playing their game, but they're just going to delay the whole thing. I mean, I agree. Like, if you're so worried that someone's going to poach your, like your fourth string tackle because they see him play in a spring game, like, shouldn't you, like first world problems, shouldn't you have other things to be worried about at this point? I think it's completely ridiculous that anyone even thinks that this is an issue. Like all of a sudden, someone's going to go into the transfer portal because you televised your freaking spring game and, they got snatched up that way. So I do think it's ridiculous. But from a, from Michigan's standpoint, I'm not quite as, like foot on the, smashing the snake's head as you guys are with this, because at least they're playing the game. They're not canceling their game like these other places. They're just, tape delaying it a week, putting it on TV.
Yeah, but they had to find a way to be different. People are canceling, people are doing the games, and then here's Michigan. Yes. Oh, we're going to put this little.
But you'd be praising Notre Dame if they were doing the same thing.
No,
I would know. I would
be televising theirs live.
I'd be calling them arrogant too. I would. It's enough, and it's another level of arrogance to have the game and then televise it later. Like that's a whole other level of arrogance. Nobody wants your players. Stop.
Well, the thing is, too, is who really cares about the spring game a week later? Most people don't even watch the day of. So you really think you're going to get that much traffic a week later? Like,
it's all the guys looking for players, Jesse. They're all going to be on there looking. All of them.
You'll be glued to their TV.
Write down that number 45. We've got to look for him next year when
we got to look for him in the December portal. The December portal. Circle that guy. We got to get him. After Michigan goes sub 500 again, we got to make sure we get their fourth string tackle on our team. Like what? Like seriously, what are you doing?
Corey says they should put it on TV a week before they play the game. I'm going to be curious to see what Notre Dame's format is, because if you remember when Marcus Freeman was talking about the spring game at his press conference a couple of weeks ago, or I guess that's only been a week and a half ago or something like that. I mean, he said that there is going to be a spring game, but it might look a little different. So I'm like
practice. We're gonna get.
I'm curious to see. Yeah, like is it just going to be like?
I think you're just going to get like competition periods basically, and not a full-on scrimmage.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like.
Black out the broadcast because everybody's going to want Notre Dame's third string guard too. Block it out.
They're going to take their format, Vince. We can't be giving away a trade secret.
Yeah, just black out the entire broadcast because the portal will be open after the game, and you're just going to see it all. It's all going to go to hell because Notre Dame is going to televise their spring game. They're going to lose half their team.
By the way, speaking of the transfer portal, Tanaya Latson from Florida State, women's basketball player, the nation's leading scorer this season, entered the transfer portal today after her junior season. So
I'm just going to say, if Notre Dame could get her size and athleticism, that'd be insane. But
that would be it would be interesting to say because for most of the season, Latson was number 1 in the nation. Hidalgo was number 2 in the nation. Hidalgo's come down, I think, like 3rd or 4th, is where she sits right now because Juju Watkins passed her up. Like, to me, that would, like everyone talked coming into this season about how Hidalgo and Olivia Miles were going to play together because they're both point guards. Like, it would be more interesting, like as great as it would be to have a player of Tanaya Latson's caliber, to have 2 players who score that much playing together, like that would be an even more intriguing question, I think. Beefeater says having the Notre Dame Blue Gold game on Peacock is basically the same as blacking out the game.
I thought that was pretty funny. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But people are desperate enough; they'll pay the extra charge just to watch that game and recruit their players. Beefeater
had a question earlier. Has anyone ever been kicked out of a Notre Dame press conference for any reason? Not that I
no.
In the last 25 years,
it
has not happened. But I can't say what happened, 30, 40 years ago. I don't know if that has ever happened. But
I can't imagine it did. But I mean, I know there's a lot of fans that don't think any tough questions get asked because people are afraid of losing their credential and things like that. What I would say to that is if people haven't been kicked out for the rule breaking and the dumbass questions that are asked, nobody's getting kicked out anytime soon.
Vince is on edge today. Vince, I wanted to ask you
left and right, man.
Now that I know the filter is gone, is a 4.62 fast for a 40 time?
It depends on the position.
Linebacker.
A middle linebacker. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think an outside backer should be a little faster than that.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Because we had the argument last year, and you were telling me dudes were slow running in the 4s. And I was like, that is not slow.
I don't remember that.
Okay. By the way, I forgot to mention this earlier. Mike Denbrock at his press conference, obviously I wasn't there, but I got the transcript today. He was asked about Steve Angeli and the quarterbacks, and he said, I'll just read you the quote.
All right.
Because he was asked about, Angeli seems to carry himself as the starter. Where have you seen his growth in that regard? Quote, it stems from confidence more than anything else. He knows for maybe the first time that he's in a real battle. Really, if you had to say, well, who's got the most experience, which I know you guys love to do on podcast and radio shows and whatever you're doing. End quote from Mike Denbrock.
Yes.
What a burner of it.
I love Denbrock. Denbrock does not really mince words. I'm a big fan. I am a big fan.
It's just so funny that that's going around, that it got its way all the way back to Denbrock.
I know.
Because it had to start, Denbrock's not out there, finding that stuff out. It had to radio its way down to him. So
I mean, just throwing the shot out there about all the rampant speculation going on in the podcasts and radio shows.
I mean, look,
the experience word.
His response to that question. Look, you can read whatever you want into every comment.
Doesn't bode well, Vince.
Right, but I would say his response to that question should not have people in the Angeli camp all that excited.
And that's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, doesn't that say to you, who really cares about the experience? We're having a competition to find out who's the best guy.
He said the experience he said his confidence is where that comes from.
Right.
We all know that Steve Angeli is a confident,
which he should. Again,
he always has been.
Yeah,
he always has been.
He's got some Jersey confidence. There's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
Yep. I meant to bring that up earlier, but I love that response.
That's fantastic.
I know. Okay. Iron Eagle, Kevin Harlan, of course, 2 of CBS's play-by-play guys during March Madness, men's college basketball. Which of those 2 would you rather have calling the last 2 minutes of a tie game?
It's no doubt Kevin Harlan. Kevin Harlan's one of my favorite basketball voices. I I can hear him in the video games. I can hear him any big NBA game, NBA Finals. I can still hear him when I can't remember when Virginia got upset a couple years ago. It feels like he's always on the call for those big upset games, and he usually has Van Gundy with him as well. And there's always a third guy, but it just watching. I think the cool part is like watching him kind of command the broadcast as well. Like I've seen him put his arms out before to be like, like just kind of let the moment be, or he'll kind of interject when he needs to. So in terms of broadcasting, I just feel like there's not a better voice and there's not a better person who commands the moment like Kevin Harlan does.
There's really I couldn't say it any better than that. Harlan was my choice as well. I am a fan of Eagle. I think he does a really, really good job.
That's the crappy part. Like Ian Eagle is still really good.
He's really, really good, but Harlan's kind of a goat. I mean, he's right up there with current level guys, and I would pick him every time.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know that I'm biased. I was curious because I actually heard this on another show, but like Ian Eagle is really good, and he's he's good in his own. He's CBS's number one guy, now that Jim Nantz isn't doing it. So obviously he's very good, and he's got his little, he'll throw in his pop culture references and some of those different things, and he's really good at that. But in terms of like guys that you want calling the end of a close game, I don't think there's any competition. As long as Kevin Harlan is still broadcasting, he will always be the answer in my book. And a lot of people would say Gus Johnson, and I think that Harlan has a little bit more pure, there's more pureness to it, where it's like the call is still like he still has control of his faculties, but he also has just the right amount of let's go nuts in these calls. So it's always going to be Kevin Harlan for me.
And I think what really is the biggest thing going against Ian Eagle is he just doesn't have the experience like Harlan of absorbing those big moments and being a part of the big moments at the end of the day.
Right.
Harlan's just been doing it for so long that's honestly the only reason he's kind of got the edge on him. He's just been a part of those moments more.
Yeah. And you can say that Eagle has a little bit more polish, on his game, but at the same time, like in those moments, I don't necessarily want the polish. I want the pure, unbridled enthusiasm that Kevin Harlan's going to bring to a call.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. Colin Cowherd, Jesse's guy, says the WNBA should have considered a separate TV package for a network on just Caitlin Clark games. Do you guys buy or sell that?
It's a huge sell for me. It might be my biggest sell of 2025 so far. I get the thought or the premise, but really there's already enough people who are kind of, current WNBA players, media who are kind of against Caitlin Clark because of
exactly.
And I think it would just isolate her a bit more if you gave her own season pass, because there'd be more moaning about, well, is it our games don't matter? It's only, Caitlin Clark that matters type situation. And so I think it would isolate her more. I think it would bring more unwanted attention to her, negative attention to her. And for her, it's just she wants to go out and play basketball and obviously be a bright spot for the WNBA. But I think it would just create a lot more controversy and isolation than what it's worth at the end of the day.
Jet, you're kind of on fire today. This is a good response. It's a huge sell for me too. Obviously, I think it's ridiculous, and that's generally what that's how Cowherd's takes generally go. But that's a ridiculous take. I mean, if the Indiana Fever, are good enough, then they can get a regional, situation, and then people can subscribe to those regional channels and things like that. Okay, fine. That's one way to go about it. If she really is that popular, I'm not sure that that's the case. Now, isolating one player from an entire league for a specific, game pass or whatever is ridiculous. If they didn't do that for Michael Jordan or LeBron James, as much as that's not a debate for me, but pick out the best players in the NBA. They didn't do it for them, and they have a much higher audience, pull, then they're not going to do it for her. That's a ridiculous take. I don't like it. And then if you want to add in, I didn't even think about the fact that it isolates her in a negative fashion with some of the media member. Yeah, that's a great take. I didn't even think about that.
And not just the media member. Obviously, there's a lot of jealousy and backbiting, stuff like everything that happened with her, with the other players last year. Yeah. And like, so now you're going to, so you've already got that stuff going on. So now you're like, oh, well, let's just sell a Caitlin Clark package,
right.
Like that's going to make anyone feel better about Caitlin Clark, who already, was mad, like you remember, I think it was the Washington, the owner of the Washington franchise, was mad about her being like the Time, person of the year or sportsman of the year or whatever it was. And, like the whole league should be, the sportsman. Come on. There's enough already. And all you would be doing would be creating more of that. And 41 of the 44 games that Clark is going to play in this year are going to be on some kind of national TV as it is.
And if you're that big of a WNBA fan, you probably have their season pass or all access pass and can watch any one of those games.
And the reality is, if you're an Indiana Fever fan, you probably live within 10 miles of Indianapolis, so you can go to her games if you really want to. So
exactly.
Assuming
they're not sold out, because half the league already has, because a lot of these WNBA teams play in smaller arenas that aren't the actual NBA arenas. But I think more than half of the teams that she's going to play against this year have decided to, if they have NBA arenas, they've moved the Indiana Fever games to the NBA arena so they can sell more tickets. It's like, I mean,
look, I've actually looked into Indiana Fever tickets, and they're ridiculous. Like I can't take my kids to go see Caitlin Clark because the tickets are that expensive. It's ridiculous. So,
yeah, it is. They're through the roof, and basically they're all making their money off her as it is right now anyway. But I just think that doing something like this would do nothing but isolate her even more than she was already isolated last year. Hopefully it gets better. I see one of Jesse's dogs is working his way in. Sonia Citron, her cat, by the way, worked its way into the show once or twice yesterday.
Love it.
Again, you can check out that Sonia Citron interview if you haven't already, either on YouTube or podcast platforms. That's all I've got, guys. We've zipped right through a rapid fire tonight.
I mean, it's over an hour. I don't know if zip right through is necessarily the right.
Well, the guy.
We had a good tempo. We had a good pace.
Yeah, I felt good.
Like we didn't linger too long.
You guys got some quality combine talk in before I got here, so I appreciate that.
We did, since Vince wanted nothing to do with combine talk. By the way, Maryland, the 4th seed, leading number 1 seed South Carolina by 4 right now, midway through the third quarter. It's already in the second half.
I'm upset about it.
Let me before we part here.
Oh boy, what is this?
Let's just do a little. You guys, Vince, have you been tracking much of the men's tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a bracket that I'm doing very poorly in.
What do you guys? Anyone that you feel super confident about going to the Final Four, or any of the games today you feel super confident about? I think Ole Miss is going to beat Michigan State tonight. I think that's kind of my big upset. Kentucky, Tennessee. I like Tennessee.
I'm feeling pretty good about Florida after watching them last night. Feeling
beat
good
up on Maryland.
The Gators. Yeah.
I want Houston to stomp Purdue. I want Auburn to stomp Michigan. I know Vince wants Auburn to stomp Michigan. I think at the end of the day, I really like Florida, like you were saying. If I made a bracket, I think that's the team that I would have picked to win. I really like St. John's. I briefly, Vince, I didn't tell you this, briefly got to chat to Richard Pitino last weekend in the hotel. Naomi was hosting customers, and we were all meeting at the Marriott in the lobby. And that was the same hotel that New Mexico was staying in. And so, nice. I saw him, and I was like, "Are you Richard Pitino?" And he was actually super nice. And we chatted for 2 minutes, and then he had to go. But it was still a cool experience.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I was a big fan of St. John's too, and they lost. And so now that really hurt me. So
where'd Pitino go?
He just took the yeah.
Where?
Where did he go?
Because I thought I had heard Villanova, but it sounds like that's going to be the Maryland coach. Xavier. He went to Xavier. That's where he went.
Yes.
Patino. Yeah. All right.
MH Ortho is all over it. And
I have to
go ahead.
I have to let John Kristofik know. He keeps talking bad about the Cubs and saying the Pirates are going to win the division.
Pirates.
I watched the same old story last night. Ski started off good, and they got to the bullpen, and what happened? The Pirates' piss poor bullpen blew another game, just like every game last season.
Be real clear here. I want to give John the benefit of the doubt. He said the Pirates are going to win the division. So if by win the division he means comes in last, then you're absolutely right. That will absolutely happen.
They will win last place in the division.
Yes. The season is so fresh that Vince still cares about the Cubs, and I can get him to trash talk with me.
Hey, they're 1-2. Okay, I'm not going to get too excited. John wants to know how they could already play 3 games because they played 2 in Japan.
Come on, John, you knew that.
Champs. I realize
Major League Baseball in its, whatever you think, sent them to Japan to play the Dodgers last week. Yes, so they're 1-2.
The best team in baseball. But, it's okay. It's okay. They were winning for a minute.
I think everybody's playing for second place against the Dodgers this year.
Yeah, that roster's
just to be honest.
Insane.
Yes.
They kicked the crap out of the Cubs without Mookie or Freeman. I was like, what are we supposed to do here?
I mean, hey, Nico was back in the States, okay? God.
Beefeater asking if I've tried white Alabama barbecue sauce. Not since I've been here. I've tried it before. Not a fan, personally. I like the Carolina style, little vinegar barbecue sauce. That's actually the one that I prefer the most. Not a white barbecue sauce fan.
There's a decent chance, Jesse, that the Pirates will be eliminated by July 31st.
There's a chance that the Cubs might get Skeens off of him.
I was just going to say, if the Pirates are smart, they're going to trade Skeens for like a farm system, basically, because he's all they have. So, but, good luck, Pittsburgh fans.
They got a shortstop that they're forcing to play center field too. Don't forget about that.
Just, sit back and enjoy the Aaron Rodgers experiment with Pittsburgh Steelers.
Vince is letting Pittsburgh have it right now. I love it.
They should just bring Barry Bonds out of retirement at this point.
Hey, White Sox are undefeated. So all the White Sox fans out there,
I know.
You guys are
up.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
They might do better than the Pirates.
By spring break, that probably won't be the case.
I don't understand these random matchups that they've got to start the season with the Cubs playing the Diamondbacks, the Yankees playing the Brewers.
The Guardians were playing the
Guardians Royals. Yeah.
You got divisional matchups day one. I don't know.
Like I said, very random.
John, I got some bad news for you, buddy.
They ain't paying them.
They will 100% trade Paul Skeens as soon as his rookie deal is up.
They ain't paying that bad.
They're not paying what he's going to be worth. There is no chance that that's happening.
You might as well buy the Paul Skeens Dodgers jersey right now.
Or Yankees.
Yeah.
One of the two.
You got a good shot if you get one of those two.
Let's hope it's not the Yankees, man.
It could be. I mean, they will pay big dollars for him, I would imagine.
I know.
I
wonder if the Red Sox will be back into spending mode by that point to try to keep them away from the Yankees.
Whatever big market you want to name, they got a better shot at landing Paul Skeens than the Pirates do.
Except for Chicago, because they continue to show that they're completely cheap.
We can end the show now.
Hey, here's the thing. The Cubs still have a better chance of signing Paul Skeens than the Pirates do.
That's true.
That's
very true.
Okay.
There
we go.
There
we go.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up with that. Again, we've got, of course, Sweet 16 Notre Dame women's basketball coming up Saturday. So if things go the way that we think that they will, it'll be these two knuckleheads on Monday doing some kind of show because I'll be doing a basketball game Monday night. So good luck with all that.
We'll see. We'll see.
Vince is already trying to find a way out.
There's got to be a reason somewhere.
I know.
I have 5 kids I can blame it on.
All right. Have a good weekend. Hit the like button before you leave. Appreciate you as always. Take care. You too, John.
We love you,
Appreciate
John. We're just giving you a hard
everybody
time.
else. Even Roger Dodger, our old Southern Cal fan, is in the house tonight. All right. Well, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.